Let's do this.
It's time for Hanging with Langan.
I like that she's got a big dirty mouth that gets her in trouble.
Wow.
Stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time.
You're hanging with Langan. Maureen Langan here with you. You know what we do here? I bring you guests from academics to comics to alcoholics. It all runs the gamut. That's what we do here. Try to give you a show that has, it's fun, smart, has some heart. And I'm excited today. If you're watching this, do me a favor, please share it. Let people know this is how we've been growing the audience. Hanging with Langan comes live to you now Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. And I'm putting this up. It goes to all the major platforms, audio, Apple, Spotify, iHeart. So you can subscribe there, but let people know and share it because that's how we're making the magic happen. And of course, it's on Patreon, all the video, if you want to go there. So this is what we're doing today. People are already tuning in. I like this. We're doing an evening version because you people are getting back to work, which is a good thing. So we want to make these guests accessible to you in the evening. And if there's a time that you think is great, you let us know. And by us, I mean me, because that's who it is. And we'll see what works best for everyone. So I like the history. I like the books. That's what I do, even though, I would have been better off had I never read a book in my life and danced with poles while I still had the body to do so, because that is the path to success. But anyway, I was raised wrong. So anyway, I'm excited because my guest who will join me in just a moment, she's the author. Her name is Amy Russo, and she's the author of this book, Women of the White House. And look, I have all these little notes because Maureen Langan does her homework. But look at this. Look at this one. Look at Mrs. Tyler. Can't see her. There we go. We're going to talk about, there were 47 official first ladies. And of 230 years. It's fascinating. It is fascinating how different they were. Some of the outfits, they looked a little cross-dressery. Some you're like, is that a woman or a cross-dresser? You don't know. But, I'm excited because this journalist, Amy Russo, she was she's now with the Providence Journal in Rhode Island, the city reporter there, doing the real journalism on the streets. She's a New York transplant. She worked at the New York Post, the Huff Post, and NBC News. The book, Women of the White House, the illustrated story of the first ladies of the United States of America. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And let's welcome to Hanging with Langan, Amy Russo.
Hello, great to be here.
I told you it's going to be a little wacky. This isn't going to be your PBS interview, though I used to work for PBS. So
I love it.
Okay. We could get serious. All of this is serious, so none of this is disrespectful. You covered from the First Lady to current days. People are already asking questions about Melania. We'll get to that. Let me warm her up. What interested me in reading your book, and what I like is it's a compilation. There's 3-4 pages on each First Lady, and you can get to know her better, and then dive in more if you want into other books, which is what I like about it. What made you write this?
Well, I think Americans, we're not known for having a great grasp on our history to begin with, but I think people in particular have overlooked the power of the first ladyship. And there were, of course, women who were very reluctant, which readers will find out as they get through this book. But there were other women who, the classic examples being Eleanor Roosevelt, Hillary Clinton, who really brought a lot of influence to the White House and made the first ladyship this outsized position that it had never really been before. And there are so many more other women who, we don't think of, who did bring a lot of contributions, who aren't those, name brand people, but were very significant. So I think that's kind of the aim of the book, is to be a little enlightening, teach you that kind of fun fact that you didn't know, and just show you how cool the position really is.
And that's what I liked about it. You guys, if you're pick up the book Women of the White House, and you'll just see it's so quick to read, and there's so many great little tidbits. And then you go, I want to know more about Sarah Polk. I have some pictures of these women, and I found a thread, if I may say, a theme, if you will. I have found repeatedly that many fell ill when they got to the White House. Didn't get ill, they fell. Everybody fell ill. Nobody gets, they fall. A lot of redecorating going on. Everybody's like, let's redecorate. And a number of them, this was their second marriages. to the fellas.
Right.
Let's dish the dirt on that, Amy Russo, journalist.
Oh, yeah. And that started with the first lady, Martha Washington. And this was all a combination of death and divorce. So Martha Washington, her first husband died suddenly 7 years into their marriage. Then Martha Jefferson's first husband, he's a plantation owner. He died only 2 years into their marriage. Dolly Madison's first husband died of yellow fever. Rachel Jackson, she's an interesting story. She divorced her first husband, who was quite an abusive man. And there was a lot of controversy over the time because divorce didn't really exist as a concept then. So for a woman to be divorcing a man was just, either it wasn't really recognized or it was this huge scandal that ruined reputations. Florence Harding, much later, divorced her husband, and Betty Ford, later than that, divorced her first husband. So you had a big line of people.
I think back to what you're saying about Rachel Jackson, that she got a divorce. I wonder in those times how the strength that had to take for a woman to go, I'm out of here, just to go, I'm done. The strength that had to take in a society that ostracizes divorce as a whole, and women having that kind of strength. And were there courts or lawyers or people that even oversaw that?
I don't know that anybody really oversaw it. I don't know what kind of documentation existed then for women who wanted to have a divorce, but certainly in those days, if you did want to get one, even if your husband was a known abuser or, just had a horrible reputation in the community, as a woman, that all blew back on you and ruined your reputation if you're the one getting a divorce. So it was one of those things that, of course, it's still taboo today in some ways, but then it was just unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine the strength that took just to even hear that. I took some pictures because we're going to get to the modern day ones and people know those names. People are sending ridiculous, crazy questions. They're so funny, everybody. And I appreciate Peter, Bob, Charlotte, all of you for tuning in. And please share this. If you're watching this, I want to see you share it. It's only fair. It shows you care. Reading through your book, Women of the White House, I came across Miss Sarah Polk.
Yeah.
I found her interesting. Tell me her deal, Sarah. And by the way, she was in the White House as First Lady from 1845 to 1849, for those of you playing bingo at home. All right.
So yeah, she is quite an interesting character. I must say she's one of my least favorite First Ladies, but I found her quite fascinating because she opposed voting rights for women. But it seemed that by her behavior, she really enjoyed having the influence that came with the first ladyship. And she recognized that she was operating in what was then and what still is to some degree today a man's world of politics in Washington. And she was said to have gone around and hobnobbed with politicians and passed off her own opinions as those of the president and said, well, the president thinks this, the president thinks that, and these are all her own thoughts. And, on top of that, she opposed, freedom for slaves at that time. So she had a lot of very, very, very not at all progressive ideals for that time. And I think what's interesting, though, is that as a woman, she clearly wanted to be powerful, but she didn't want to share that power with anybody else, not even white women who looked like her. So it was really a self-serving interest in power.
Totally elite, like totally, only this belongs to me. Very, very much like a queen, if you will. So, this chick, this is how I talk. I mean no disrespect to your book. This broad, listen about this dame. We're talking about the first women, the first ladies of the White House. There's 47 official. Why do you say official?
So those are the ones that have been recognized in the country as having been first lady. But you have these odd situations where, we talked about death, especially early on in the presidency. You had first ladies who died too of disease. We just didn't have the type of healthcare that we do now. And so, Martha Jefferson, Rachel Jackson, Hannah Van Buren, they all died before their husbands entered office. So there were these surrogate first ladies.
Got it.
And those could have been a daughter if the would have been first lady had a daughter by then, or they could have been a niece. So they weren't really official, but they were acting kind of as first lady, stepping in on major social events, but they weren't permanent fixtures.
I see, but they were allocated the role of first lady, so you consider them a first lady. I got like such a. Let's go to the niece of President Buchanan. Here we have Harriet Lane. Oh no, this is Harriet Lane Johnson. Sorry. Where is my? Well, yeah, that is her. That is Buchanan's niece, isn't it? Is that? Do I have the wrong one? Harriet Lane Johnson.
He filled in as first lady because he was a bachelor. I believe that was his niece. But she was quite popular. She held parties, she held elegant dinners. So, you know, I don't think she really filled the first ladyship, filled that role in any sort of like really permanent, totally complete capacity, which was typical for a surrogate. They wouldn't do everything, but she actually was quite well liked for somebody who was only a surrogate.
Well, you know, she was young, they said, and fashionable and liked parties and entertaining. Not a Kardashian of her time, definitely smarter than that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, Amy, what I was reading is that Buchanan, in your book, by the way, Women of the White House, I was reading this, is that he was engaged, Buchanan, even though he remained a bachelor his whole life, to a woman named Anne, you say, and that she broke up the engagement and nobody knows why.
Yeah, it's really unclear. And it's, you know, for some of these questions, they kind of linger for historians because all people have to go back on are, you know, maybe letters people have written or observations from people who lived at that time or whatever, you know, gossip might have been written down. But that was unclear. And I think it was, you know, a pretty heartbreaking thing for him. And, you know, of course, he didn't get married.
Of course, if a guy back then was a bachelor his whole life, in hindsight in history, we go, oh, maybe he was gay. But I don't think that, well, maybe that's why she broke up with him. Who knows? I mean, you don't know. It's all scandal and rumors. So I want to move on to another. There's so many here. And I'm bringing up, well, she's famous. Here we go. Mary Todd Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so glad that kind of full skirt isn't in today because my gut's too big. I would look horrendous in that. I just would, it would be like awful, like pleats, forget it. But what I was interested in reading about Mary Lincoln, we know that she's, you know, known for having this volatile personality and temperament and having been very depressed. But it sounds as if she may today have been diagnosed as manic depressive.
Yeah, that's quite possible. And, you know, she suffered a lot of loss in her life, too, which, you know, I think from what I'm aware of can make bipolar depression even worse, traumatic events. But, you know, not only losing her husband, obviously, when he was assassinated, she lost 2 of her children. And it seems like her behavior became even more erratic after those events. You saw her developing really deep financial problems. Spending a lot uncontrollably. So it seems like she did have some signs of what might have been a manic depressive disorder. I don't know that historians really know what exactly it was. Of course, the mental health system then was probably quite abysmal. But yeah, she's unfortunately known more for her behavior than for anything that she contributed to the first ladyship.
And what did she contribute?
It really, I can't point to any concrete connection. It was really that behavior that she was remembered for. And obviously she ceased being first lady after the assassination of her husband.
Yeah. My guest is Amy Russo. She's a journalist, and her book is Women of the White House, the illustrated story of the first ladies of the United States of America. Where can people get your book?
They can pick it up at barnesandnoble.com. You can pick it up on Amazon for all you Amazon shoppers. And I believe Walmart and Target are also selling it online.
And it's so not boring, you guys. You can go through it so quickly. There's a few pages on each first lady. We're not done here, Amy. You have more time to hang with me. I'm going to put you in the back. I'm going to do a little commercial break. Stand by. Ladies and gentlemen, hear ye, hear ye. Hear you. That's in keeping, with the motif. Okay. Thank you for tuning in. Hanging with Langan. We're doing it now Tuesdays at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Bringing you, I bring you great guests every week. Last week it was my comedy friends who appeared on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. They landed roles, and that's a big deal. They're supportive roles, of course. They're not, the main characters, but it's so great. Next week I have the top voiceover person in the country, Randy Thomas. She has done the Oscar voiceovers 10 times, Super Bowls, Entertainment Tonight, the most down-to-earth woman. She began in radio back in the day, just came from humble beginnings, scrappy. I am so proud of her. She's the most down-to-earth person. She's going to talk to you about what it takes to make it in the business. She's generous with her knowledge and her tips. So you tune in and you ask questions. She's going to help you because we help people. That's what we do here in Hanging with Langan. If you like the shows, all of them are free, but I ask if you can, pay what you can. That's all we do. Pay what you can, if you can, at paypal.me/Mo Langan and Venmo @Mo Langan. If you can. If not, I'm here for you. That's all I give. I'm a giver. And if you'd like to subscribe monthly, beginning at $5, patreon.com /Maureen Langan. And that's a subscription-based thing. And when you do that, you'll get all the videos because they're not available. The audio is available, of course, on Apple and Spotify and all the platforms. The videos at Patreon. And at different levels, I'll send you a Don't Make Me Hate You t-shirt because you don't want to hate people. They make you hate them. You're a victim. Also, too, if you go to MaureenLangan.com, we got the Don't Make Me Hate You masks, tons of t-shirts, whatever you need. So keep following. And my comedy special, Dry Bar comedy special, Don't Make Me Hate You, is coming out at the beginning of the summer. So I'm excited about that. Anyway, so that's the deal, you guys. I want to bring back our guest, Amy Russo. She is the author of Women of the White House. So let's do this. Thanks, Amy. That was my commercial break. It's very high tech. This is how it was when I worked at Bloomberg. Yeah, this is what I did.
Yeah, the bell. Yeah, of course.
It's with the colors of the show, Amy. It's very professional.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah. I do it all. All right. So I love that you wrote this. I want to bring in another woman. And again, these are some of them random. They stuck with me. I don't know. Lucy Hayes, her husband Rutherford, was he the one that was a lot older than she, or no? Was that another one? Somebody was like 30 years older than somebody else.
You might be thinking of Grover Cleveland's marriage to his wife, who was very, very young, substantially younger than he was, but that was a big scandal. But Lucy Hayes is also interesting.
Before we go to Hayes, let's not stop. Let's go back to the scandal because it is Grover Cleveland because they lived in New Jersey and I grew up in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And there is a place, West Caldwell, there's a Grover Cleveland lived here sign. I understand that his wife had been orphaned young or lost her father young, and he stepped in as like a paternal role model, kind of like Woody Allen of his day. And then he wound up marrying her, even though he was her paternal mentor, so to speak. Like, it's kind of creepy.
It was an unsavory situation, I'll call it. It attracted a lot of press because those were the days of Joseph Pulitzer. So sensationalism was starting to develop within journalism. And this kind of story was the perfect thing for that. It just lent itself to it. I mean, this type of thing you didn't even have to sensationalize. The material was there. And during their honeymoon, there are these crazy stories about press hanging out in treetops, trying to spy on them. And they're just, there was an insane amount of interest in the story. They had tried to keep the honeymoon location private, I believe, but, people found out. And they had some concerns over privacy at that time. It had just become such a big story.
You know what's interesting to me, because the Pulitzer, if you win the Pulitzer, it's such an honor. And to think that Pulitzer began as the first type of tabloid journalism, that bothers me. That makes me sad.
It's interesting. I mean, having worked in a tabloid, I could see like both sides of it, and both sides can be exciting. And sometimes the tabloids get into really shady territory. But definitely this is the type of story that they would love.
I know, but Pulitzer, it tends to lead you to think of highbrow or in
Right.
depth. It doesn't. You're talking about the New York Post as a tabloid, right?
Right.
Which is delicious reading on from the Port Authority out to Parsippany. I do have to tell you, have to have it. Dana, hi Dana. She says, "You look, Amy, like Anne Hathaway. Have you been told that before?"
I did once, and I don't think so, but I thank you so much. It's really sweet.
Oh, you do? I see it though. You're beautiful, and yeah, good for you. I like that.
Thank you. I think my face is getting really red, but thank you.
I got Peg Bundy. What about that? That's great.
Oh,
So,
no.
what's happening? All right. So we were bringing up Lucy Hayes. What was her deal?
Yeah, so Lucy Hayes got the name Lemonade Lucy because she brought temperance to the White House. And this was one of those times where the first lady almost outshined. I don't want to say outshined, but kind of attracted more attention than her husband did because she was kind of steering the ship of the social culture within the White House at that time. And for her, there was not going to be a drop of alcohol anywhere. So, no wine at dinner, nothing like that. She's also credited with bringing in this era of the new woman, which kind of signified some sort of independence. Part of that was she was the first to enter the White House with a college degree. There's some debate over whether or not the school she went to counted as a college, but I think historians are in general agreement that she had a college degree and she was the first.
That was Lucy Hayes. I liked the pictures of her with her family and she looks fun, but what's with these people not wanting a nice glass of French wine when the ambassador shows up?
I know. I don't understand it.
That ain't right. Hey, Stanley, thanks for tuning in. Perfect Tuesdays. Damn right. Dana's ordering your book right now. You guys get her book right now and give it as a gift. Women of the White House. And this is something seriously. You don't have to go, oh God, I got to sit down and get really into this. It's a coffee table book. It's something that you could just pick up and go, I'm just going to read today about, well, we'll get to that poor pathetic little one. We're not going to talk about her yet. But listen, you get into a couple of pages and this is not pathetic. And listen, I'm so empathetic. 2 or 3, 4 pages on each person. They start out young. Can you see that? They start out young. Maureen, I feel like I'm in school. Boys and girls, can you see Sarah Paul? And is this the most fun interview you've ever had? Or
it actually is. It's very refreshing.
I know. And then look, then there she is, the older years. This is what happens. This is what happens when you don't drink and you're too inhibited to have good sex. That's what you look. That's what you look like, people. She probably had the better sex life than all of us. What do we know? We have no idea. So, poor. So you have time to hang with me because this is fun stuff, and I'm really enjoying it. Really, I am. And what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fun to have a good time around it. Poor. I read about Mrs. Pierce, and now poor Ida. Poor Ida. That part in and of itself is so sad. That part down the middle of her head, or whatever was going on there. But Ida had things weren't good for Ida. Talk to me about Mrs. McKinley.
Yeah, so she was just perpetually ill. I'm not quite sure what ailment she was dealing with, but she, was just always struggling with her health. And at the same time, she'd lost 2 of her daughters and her mother.
Oh, boy.
In roughly the same time period, very close to each other. So she just had, hit after hit after hit of just really, significant losses. And she was also praised, though, for her fortitude. She was seen as a very strong woman. And I think people really recognized that and honored her for that.
I was reading she said, was she in a wheelchair?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
She was, and the thing is, people sometimes thought because she was a little bit more reclusive, quiet, and in a wheelchair that she didn't have the strength that she has. We don't know, right? What people appear to be versus what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely emotionally. It sounds like from people's recollections from that time that she was just very stoic, would be the word.
We're going to have a couple more that I have. There was no Mrs. Buchanan, was there? No, Dana, you tuned in late. Dana, you were probably ordering the book, Dana. You were ordering the book. There was the niece, Harriet Lane Johnston. There she is. She dabbled, looked pretty, had parties. She was there when he needed her, maybe a couple of overseas trips. I don't know if she redid a garden. I don't know if they like redecorating these people. Like everybody's wondering. Melania, which we'll get to in a bit, but Melania, like, would she take all the roses out? What happened? Like now there's concrete? I don't know. Everybody has to redo everything.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I guess we could say she did was the Be Best initiative was definitely something that seemed to get a lot of publicity. But I think, overall, objectively, she didn't really contribute a whole lot to the first ladyship. I think at certain times, we all remember those PR snafus, I would say, in terms of, the jacket, the I don't care, do you? And, I think it was a good example of certain things that could have been avoided, certain scandals that didn't need to happen in the first ladyship, that perhaps if there was, maybe there was an advisor, I don't know, but if there was somebody advising her at that time, some of those, optic problems could have been eluded.
And which ones are you talking about? We're talking about I don't care, do you, which infuriated me because I really do care. I care a lot. So
yeah, and there were some commentary and interviews about journalists, wanting to cover her husband to make themselves more famous. There were just like certain points, which there weren't like these massive scandals, but I think the jacket was, but there were other things that just that made waves.
So do you count her as one of the first ladies? No,
I do. The nation does. The White House does.
I know. I didn't understand Be Best. Like, I didn't understand why there can't be an article in there, Be the Best. Like, I didn't know. Or be your best, or be, I didn't know what that meant. And I understand she speaks 5 languages. I just didn't understand why there couldn't be a the in there, be the, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay. Yes. People are making comments. We'll get to your questions, you guys. Peter says, Melania, the only first lady with nude photos online. That we know of, Peter. That we know of. All right. People are very curious about, of course, Eleanor Roosevelt. She gets a lot of publicity. But let's go to the first Mrs. Roosevelt, Theodore's wife, Edith. She doesn't get a lot of airtime. I don't know if there's, she doesn't get a lot. We don't know. I don't know anything about Edith.
Yeah, well, the thing that I think makes her the most significant in terms of the development of the first ladyship is that she set the precedent for having paid staff. Before then, people didn't really have a whole paid staff, but she hired a secretary, she hired caterers, and that helped to make the position more official because, the first ladyship isn't something that's official anywhere. It's not written into our governmental documents. It's not a paid position. So each one of these women that could add something to it that made it official in some way, whether it be staff, whether it be finally building the East Wing, that helps to make it more recognized.
And tell people, what is the East Wing? I mean, the East Wing and the West Wing.
Sure. So the West Wing is where the president has his office, the Oval Office, and the East Wing is where the First Lady has her office. And there's some debate as to when the East Wing was actually constructed because there was kind of, an informal, unofficial workspace long ago, but it really wasn't until I wrote it on a little notepad.
That's okay.
Forget 1942 that it was the actual East Wing as we know it today was constructed. So that's actually not that long ago, if you think about it.
Amy has cliff notes on her own book, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone, we have to. It's a book. It's a whole book. You have to. That's good. I mean, you're a journalist. I would do the same thing. So Edith, okay. So everybody asks this. It becomes a repeated question, but it is an interesting one. Eleanor Roosevelt, a lesbian?
I have no idea. I've heard that comment before, and I'm really not sure. I don't know.
All right, we're gonna look into that and get back to us, Amy.
Okay. Next book.
Get back to us. Who would you say are the most influential first ladies of our history?
I would say it really comes down to Eleanor Roosevelt being probably the most influential. And then after that, Probably Hillary Clinton. And I say that in part because, I know there are a lot of folks that have strong feelings on both, loving and really disliking Hillary Clinton. But you can't deny that she set a new precedent for the position because she was elected senator while serving as first lady. And we had never seen, and we still have never seen anybody be elected to a position like that while being first lady. It was just unheard of. So, and obviously she went on to do many more political things and eventually obviously launched her own campaigns for president. But I think she was really the closest we had to somebody obviously becoming president. Though you could go back to someone like Edith Wilson, who I like to talk about too, who served in a bit of a presidential capacity at one point.
Well, Woodrow Wilson, he was over in France, right? The Treaty of Versailles, and he came back very ill, and he had a stroke, yes?
Yeah, he had a stroke that basically incapacitated him. And I think there were some people at the time who thought that he should have stepped down because he was that ill. And Edith was really his protector then. And she, according to her memoir, had liaised with politicians and read documents on his behalf and gave him certain information and kept certain, would be briefing him on things. And there are historians who debate that she might have overstated her role, but I think he leaned on her very heavily during that time.
Do you think, was he mentally incapacitated or just physically?
I think he had some of the classic lingering effects of a stroke in terms of, I don't know if he had all functions of one side of his face. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to go back and look again, but he definitely was physically struggling.
Speaking of Hillary Clinton, I know that people didn't find her likable, which is the most horrible thing you can do as a woman. And I know there were certain things that were perceived and perhaps were arrogant. I can see people perhaps thinking that. And the ironic thing is I have a comedian friend who is friendly with her, and it says, Maureen, she loves to have a beer and have a bawdy joke. And I'm like, I wish she could have brought that forth more, because that would have resonated for a lot of people. The whole email thing made my head explode. It just made my head explode. And the way it was treated, it was beyond her. What it represented to me was actually quite heartbreaking. A woman of her knowledge and skill and intellect and experience could lose to The Apprentice. And I don't say that I'm funny, I like to be a wise ass. I say that with 1000% sincerity. She will go down in the history books as one of the finest first ladies, as in Eleanor Roosevelt, to have been in the White House. I believe that in my whole heart. And I know there's a lot of PR around Eleanor, but rightfully so. Sometimes you think, does the myth become larger than the person? But the work that Eleanor Roosevelt did, let's talk about what she did, and let's talk about what Hillary did and why they are so prominently respected in your book and when you talk about them.
Yeah, so Eleanor Roosevelt, she was quite remarkable. She was an advocate for civil rights. She worked on combating social ills, devoted to the World War I effort. And one thing I love about her is that she was a master of media. She wrote books. She delivered radio broadcasts. She penned a nationally syndicated newspaper column, which we've never seen anybody do. We've still never seen anybody do that. The fact that she was so out there, and I honestly, reading about her schedule every day, I don't know how she possibly fit all these things into the span of 24 hours. I mean, it was just remarkable. She really was active on civil rights. She joined the NAACP and she resigned in protest from the Daughters of the American Revolution. And for those who don't know, that's an organization where its members are supposed to trace their heritage back to the revolutionary days. And every first lady was given honorary membership and made president during their first ladyship. Oh. And because the DAR did not allow a Black singer, Marian Anderson, famous Black singer per day, to perform in its concert hall, Eleanor Roosevelt said, well, great, then I'm going to leave the DAR. And it was this big, like, you know, parting of the seas on that. It was amazing. And in 1962, JFK appointed her to his Commission on the Status of Women. And that looked at workplace and educational inequality. So you can see how she had this outsized reputation that really outlasted her time in the White House. And I think it was Truman who called her First Lady of the World. So, you know, it really, she left a mark.
Would you say First Lady of the World? Is that what you said? Yeah, harmonica. Mm-hmm. Eleanor Roosevelt, Peter wants to know, I don't know if you know this. I think it's true, though. Eleanor Roosevelt appeared on What's My Line? At the game show. Amy doesn't know that game show.
I
get back to My Mother the Car. What are we? She's not sure. Peter, look it up. Get back to us. I think she did, though, Peter. It was like the contestants were blindfolded. They were like celebrities, or no, the celebrity was hidden, and they had to ask questions of the person to find out who they are. Something like that. And guess who they are? Are you? You know. Are you Marilyn Monroe? No. They'd ask questions. Are you, do you live in Washington? They'd have to figure it out. So let's get to some of the more modern day women. I listened to a podcast recently about Lady Bird Johnson, which interested me. What stands out to you about Lady Bird, other than the ridiculous name?
Yeah, I kind of love the name, but it's very interesting. Well, obviously, she entered in the wake of the JFK assassination, and I think she came in with this feeling that, I don't really belong here because I'm only here, because of the horrible circumstances that led me here. But she did this 180 where she became politically active. She was the first lady to do a whistle stop campaign for her husband. And she stood by his civil rights push. Of course, LBJ was quite progressive on that. She lobbied for the Highway Beautification Act, and that was this whole effort to crack down on billboard ads and other signage on the road and plant flowers. And it ended up passing. So obviously her lobbying had an effect.
Listening to her, a podcast about her, I think it was maybe it was with Terry Gross, I'm not sure. But how bright she was and independent. And it was interesting to hear a lot about her. Dana, thank you. Eleanor is on What's My Line. Dana has put a link to it in the chat. So get over to the chat and you can copy and paste that. I think everybody loves Jackie O. I don't know anybody who doesn't know that one. Let's talk about Jackie O, the mystique. What was she really like? What stood out to her in the book that, for you?
Yeah.
What to put in there? You had to choose to put in, because it's a compilation of so many first ladies. And there's 47 first ladies in your book, which is so easy reading, folks. It's how many pages? Under 200 pages. So how did you choose what to put in about Jackie O, and what do you have in there?
It was tough because you do have these women who have these huge, larger than life reputations, and you have to condense it down to, 1,000 words. So it is difficult, but of course she had, this very glamorous reputation about her. She had close relationships with designers. One thing I found interesting was her relationship with media. I don't think she got along particularly well with media, but obviously media loved her because, she had a lot of great coverage, and she did a really sizable renovation of the White House. And then
they all do that.
Yeah. That is a common theme, renovation.
That's what they do. Renovate.
Yeah. Theirs was quite sizable though. And she did a walkthrough tour JFK, a White House that was broadcast on TV. So there was big national and people sitting in their homes watching this, over dinner or whatever. So it was interesting. And one other thing I thought was, caught my eye is after JFK died, and I think this speaks to how much image making was going on in the White House at that time. I think she really wanted people to remember him as this really magnificent character. And she had said to the press there will never be another Camelot. And I believe she was quoting a song when she said that. But, Camelot meaning this was this massive, larger than life presidency, and there'll never be anything like it again. So I think from the clothes to the glamour to the renovation to the comment, it really was a lot of image making. I always return to that term because it accurately describes what was going on.
One of the things that I loved about her, though, is that she saved historic architecture in New York City. She saved Grand Central Station. She saved that. That was going to be demolished, and she fought to keep that. I think that's very cool. Okay, people are getting in. All right. One guy wants to get into ripping Hillary. We're not doing it, Patrick. Get over it. We're not doing it, baby. That ain't happening. Not gonna happen. Not playing. Let's move forward now. In modern day, let's just say, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 first ladies. Talk to me about who really resonates for you in terms of, we talk about Betty Ford speaking so openly about her addictions. And then I think she got breast cancer, didn't she too? Sure.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's very powerful and brave.
Yeah, she was a very open and candid person. Almost, I don't want to say to a fault, but politically speaking, if you wanted to ward off criticism, you wouldn't have been as open as Betty Ford. But she's actually my favorite first lady. Within weeks of becoming first lady, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was the 70s and breast cancer was very taboo to talk about then. But instead of hiding it, she encouraged women to get screened. And you had thousands of women suddenly going to screening centers, including the second lady at the time, the vice president's wife. And she actually found out that she also had breast cancer, and she underwent a double mastectomy. So, you had Betty Ford really impacting lives in real time. And then, of course, you mentioned her substance abuse problems. That is one thing. She wasn't open about it at first. I believe she had 2 memoirs. And the first memoir, she didn't reference it really. And then the second memoir, she was a lot more honest. And she said, I'm dealing with this. And she, I think we all know the Betty Ford Clinic. She established that. And that's obviously welcomed a lot of folks over the years, including a lot of celebrities too. So she made the first ladyship a public service.
It's amazingly brave. It's amazingly brave. And you said she's your favorite.
She is, yeah. Yeah, she kind of turned the whole position on its head. I mean, she was, I believe on a TV interview talking about supporting reproductive rights for women. And of course, her husband was a Republican, and the National Review ended up ripping her for that and accused her of rewriting the 10 Commandments in real time. And it's just, she constantly surprised people and constantly just spoke openly and just, she was very free.
Well, just so you know, the 10 Commandments, there is an 11th one that says, "Thou shalt not have birth control." I don't know if you know that. It was so small. It was written in such small type. So crazy. It is so crazy. Nancy Reagan, she's kind of scared me. Something off with her, I thought. I think she has anger issues. God rest her soul. Oh, just an aside, Charlotte says Betty Ford was a guest on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, I never knew that.
We learn a lot here, Amy, from the wonderful people who tune into Hanging with Langan. And you guys subscribe to it on Apple and Spotify. Please do that. Please review it on Apple. I'd really appreciate that. It helps grow the numbers. And you guys have been fantastic. Okay, so we have the most 2 recent ones. We have Melania Trump. We brought her up as we wrap this up. And we have Jill Biden, who is a doctor, but we're not allowed to call her that because, then that makes her uppity if you acknowledge her education. So what do you think? Seriously, now I know that people who listen know I'm not a Trump fan or a Melania fan. I was at first a Melania. I had a sense of listen, we don't know what she's about. Let's be respectful. Maybe she married this guy, whatever, it worked for her, it worked for her. She didn't expect to get to the White House here. I think so. I gave her all that kind of benefit of the doubt. And then when I would hear some of the things that she said, or just that people don't remember, which is so odd, that she said, fuck Christmas. Like, she basically said, fuck Christmas. There's a movie called The Brothers McMullen, and one of the brothers say, fuck God. That's what he says. I'm not saying it. That's what he says. And the one brother's like, what? F God? How you can't say F God? So I'm thinking, F Christmas? You can't say F Christmas. Nothing. Nobody cared. Didn't matter. So when I heard the behind the scenes video, or just wearing I don't care to you shirt, and I just thought, wow, E2 Brute, you really are with him. So I don't have a lot of respect, but that's me. That's my feelings. So maybe there are things I don't know. What will she be remembered for, do you think?
I think, unfortunately, she's really going to be remembered, at least by those who did not like her husband, as really just, an extension of her husband. I think that's another thing that we have to mention, is that who you're married to, the president, is definitely going to have an impact on your own reputation, perhaps on your approval rating too, whether you like it or not. And of course, there were so many moments that, perhaps she could have avoided, that without question did not help her reputation. The jacket moment, the Christmas thing. Part of me doesn't know if the Christmas thing was just this exasperation with having to plan events, but I'm not quite sure.
But still,
none of this, obviously none of this is helpful in any context, especially not for somebody who's such a public figure.
Right.
But I really think overall, just having been married to Donald Trump, that seems to also be a very tough situation, that no matter what, I don't think you're going to have a really great approval rating in the public eye, at least for those who did not like her husband.
I would agree with that part. I agree with that. But then to go so far as to say, I don't care, do you?
Yeah.
It's one thing to say, geez, okay, but it's another than to see, I see when I raise you, let's go up a notch. Dr. Jill Biden. Dr. Jill Biden. Is she off to a good start? What are we seeing? What are we thinking?
I think she's likable. I think America loves teachers. And she also, the one cool thing about her is that she's the first lady to be actually working, continuing her career while in office. She's still teaching. So that's totally new. You mentioned her education. In addition to the PhD, she has 2 masters. That makes her potentially the most educated first lady we've ever had. Now, Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama had law degrees. So I guess it depends on how you evaluate, a law degree versus a PhD, and people think of it in different ways. But she's definitely one of the most educated. And she's also been somebody who's advocated for military families, of course, with her own family has been in the military. So I think she's behind initiatives that are bipartisan. Supporting veterans is something the country hasn't, frankly, done a huge amount for that. It's something that's bipartisan, it seems, and education can be bipartisan in a way. So
I have 2 siblings who are teachers, and I have a sister who works in the school system as a social worker. So I think it is the foundation for everything. I love that she's going to continue to teach. And I think that's good. I think that's really great. I skipped over Michelle Obama. How dare I? Oh, let me get some comments here. Bob Johnson, I hear him. He says, Nancy Reagan was horrible to Rock Hudson, was harmful to the LGBTQ community. May she burn, he says. All right. But, that whole AIDS thing, that wasn't cool, the way people were treating the LGBT community.
Right.
Her own children, I believe her son, who I always thought was gay, the dancer, but he's not. He's one of 2 dancers in America, male. Who, no, I just mean I think the daughter or the son, I'm being silly, but the son or the daughter, one of them were like, my parents are crazy. I'm paraphrasing. But that was very harmful, what she did.
Yeah, I don't think that's something I got into much in the book, but yeah, I definitely for the LGBT, Q community during that time, it was extremely difficult
and devastating. So I love Michelle Obama. I love that she wanted to bring health to the forefront, which I guess people were like, no, our kids are going to have French fries and pizza. To hell with you. I'm like, okay, all right. But you could have diabetes. Okay, all right. What do you think she'll be remembered for in the history books, Michelle?
I think, well, definitely having been our first Black First Lady is just, if anything, that was such a huge change for the role. And additionally, her initiative on health, I think it had a lot of great publicity around it. It was something that was very clearly defined. Of course, she had many speaking engagements on it. She was very active on it. She traveled for it. So I think that's a good example of, now that we have this expectation that every first lady have an initiative, she gives you the roadmap for like, here's how you build it, here's how you promote it, here's how you carry it out, bring it into, and to schools or other places. And of course, childhood obesity is such a crucial issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think in a way she also kind of breathed a little fresh air into the position, because I don't know if this sounds silly mentioning this, but of course, like, she got a lot of press for wearing sleeveless dresses. And I sometimes find it funny how much attention is paid to what the first lady wears, but in a way, it felt like it sent a message that, like, yes, like, I can wear a sleeveless dress. I work out. I'm showing off. I'm proud of what I have, and it's okay for the first lady to dress that way.
I do like Melania's outfits too. I have to give credit. I did find something positive. I like the outfits. It's interesting because it's so obvious, of course. And I just want to give a shout out, please. Thank you, Charlotte and Peter and Patrick. Thank you guys for tuning in. Bob, of course, and Dana. I think it's so obvious, of course, that Michelle Obama is a Black woman, of course. But it's so funny. I didn't even think of that in terms of her historic significance, which I think is a good thing, because she's so powerful and there's so much that she has to offer, of course. And she should rightfully go down in history as the first African-American first lady, of course, and be revered for that and what that takes. But it's just like, I just think of so many traits that she has that are just so inspiring. I love, like, she takes no shit from her husband. Like, not that he's a
very strong woman. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, and like the best of what, I mean, I'm sure they have a great relationship, but she has probably sometimes go, okay, Barack, all right, enough. I've had it with you. It's enough with this. Oh, we're going on a treaty. We got to go, blah, blah. We're going on Air Force. Well, no, enough. And I love how a role model she is for children, and particularly girls, how smart she is. And just, she's fun. Like, she would go on Ellen.
Yeah.
At the show, or she would go on Lena, she'd poke fun at herself, she'd make jokes, and then I think she and her husband are in love, and they talk about family values. Certain political party, I thought they had it right there 100%. So my respect was immense. Plus healthcare, I like healthcare. Her husband got healthcare for people. I like that. My guest, Amy Russo, she's a journalist, and her book is Here it is, Women of the White House. It's such a great collection. You could just, please, each first lady has about 4 pages dedicated to her highlights. It's illustrated. It's really great. Look at Dolly with Dolly's bosom. That's where they got the ice cream cone idea. So I don't know. I'm going to put you in the back room and then say goodbye in a moment, Amy. Get her book, you guys. I love creativity. I love history. She's a journalist. A real journalist. We need journalists today, really. So when you say fake news, don't make me hate you. Speaking of which, if you want a Don't Make Me Hate You t-shirt or a mask, go to maureenlangan.com. You help support the show. Don't Make Me Hate You. They're a lot of fun. And if you're so inclined, you can support at Venmo at Mo Langan or PayPal at Mo Langan. You guys keep the shows coming when you do that. The shows are all free, but pay what you can if you can. It's a big help, particularly we're in a whole upside down world these days where this is how we're all making our living. It's all a little different. And I'd love if you wanted to subscribe monthly at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Maureen Langan. You'll get different things at different levels. It's a lot of fun. What are you talking about? Well, if you go in at the Carol Burnett level for $5, you'll get all the videos. And Dolly Parton level, you'll get bonus episodes like Dish to Dirt behind the scenes with some of my guests. Ooh, they tell me delicious things. 25, you'll get the Phyllis Diller. I'll send you the t-shirts. And you can go all the way up and we'll do a comedy show for you, wine tastings, broadcast coaching, depending at what level, be a sponsor of the show. So those are the things you can do to be supportive if you are so inclined. And until we meet again next week, I got to tell you, next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, my guest is Randy Thomas. Randy is the preeminent voiceover artist, in my opinion, the entire country. She has voiced the Oscars 10 times, the Super Bowl 3 times, Entertainment Tonight for like 15 years. Wait till you hear her voice and wait till you meet her. She's so damn down to earth. She'll give you tips. She'll tell you about the business. Now, this is a gal who worked her ass off, started as a DJ in radio, and is now, and she can't do enough to help people. So you're going to want to send, make comments and ask questions. So we'll do all that next week. So you know the routine, you guys. Until we meet again, bye, wig. Mwah.